Hi there, and welcome to Her Season of Strength, where women over 40 reclaim their bodies, their energy, and their voices without apologies. I'm Kim Duffy, registered dietitian, personal trainer, mom, and your biggest hype woman when it comes to aging like you mean it. This show isn't about chasing skinny or counting wrinkles. It's about building real strength, physical, emotional, and hormonal. Each week, I'll share straight-talking nutrition tips, sustainable fitness strategies, and conversations that help you feel powerful in your skin once again. Menopause isn't an ending, it's only the beginning. This is your season of strength. Hello, and welcome back to Her Season of Strength. I am so happy you're here, and thank you for just stopping in for a few minutes to listen to today's episode. So this episode is going to be dropping on January 22nd. I cannot believe it will be 3 weeks into January already of 2026. Just trying to get used to writing that new year down in my charting and papers and stuff. It's crazy world too. So today I want to do something just a little bit different. I want to tell you just a little story because kind of related to, January health programs and how they start with a lot of hope and end with a lot of guilt. This one might sound familiar. So let's rewind to about 10 years ago. And it was January, just like it is now. And I'll take a step back just to kind of give you a little backstory. If you don't know me, so I'm a registered dietitian, and I was a dietitian for 10 years in a large hospital-based cancer center, as well as, I worked in the hospital overall too, but spent most of my time in the cancer center. And I had patients coming to me and asking me questions all the time about diet and nutrition. And, if you've ever had a loved one or a family member or even yourself go through any kind of cancer treatment, it is, life-changing. You hear that big C word and you want to figure out what caused it. You want to figure out how to kill it and how to make it so that it never comes back. So people were asking me lots of questions. And of course, you go to Google, you try to study and figure out, research what ways can you do this? And so I would have them come to me asking me questions about, things that maybe they had read on Google, or maybe they had heard from an influencer or someone else. And most of them were repetitive. A lot of them was about sugar and asking, does sugar feed cancer? How can I, cut out all sugar from my diet? And then, there was a lot of other things, different kind of detoxes or cleanses and stuff like that. And so some of them I knew about, and other ones I'd say, you know what, I don't know about this one. Let me look into it and let me get back to you. Because I'm always wanting to learn and understand. I don't know if that's, why I went into this field, but, about why things work the way they do, why the body works the way it does. And then when you introduce different things to it, how do those things, how do they affect the body and why do they do what they do? So, I love to learn new things and then come back to them and say, well, this is my perspective on it. Obviously, I would always refer them to their doctors, but when it was really nutrition focused, the doctors were usually, saying, Kim, can you answer this question? Or do you know about this? So, there was one diet I decided one January that I wanted to do because I wanted to have real true knowledge of it. And I had never been on it before. And it was the keto diet. Okay. Anybody know about the keto diet? The keto diet, the true keto diet, the whole idea behind it is that you are cutting your carbohydrate intake so low that, your body normally wants to use carbohydrates, break them down into glucose to use it for energy. That's what your body prefers to use as an energy source, right? But in the keto diet, you're cutting back your carbohydrates so significantly that your body is forced to use fat as fuel, and it's called ketosis, okay? It is not efficient. Your body does not like to do it, so it can be challenging, right? And if you're doing a true keto diet, typically you're consuming less than 50 grams of carbohydrates in a day. Now, if you know what foods contain carbohydrates, that is going to be your fruits are 100% carbs. That's also going to be, breads, potatoes, rice, You're going to get some in your dairy products. You're not going to get any in your fat, foods like butter and mayonnaise and different things. You're not going to get much of anything other than full fat. And a true keto diet is actually not high protein. It's usually high fat, low carbs, and moderate protein, right? So, but they've kind of changed a little bit. I think, it used to be Atkins was true keto, and then they changed it to South Beach, and that was a little of a modified keto. So anyway, needless to say, I went as far as I was checking my blood and I was checking my urine to see if I was in ketosis, right? Okay. So I did it for 4 whole weeks. I did it. I cannot believe I did it for 4 whole weeks. And at the time I was exercising quite hard. I was doing kickboxing usually 3 times a week, and I was doing strength training 2 to 3 times a week. And oh my goodness, your body it needs glucose to have energy, right? I was just dying during my workouts. It would take a little bit for my body to actually click into that, let's use fat, because fat, we can't break down fat as easily as carbohydrates to make energy. And so it's a little sluggish. It's not a very efficient process. So anyway, there are people that just lose weight hand over fist on the keto diet. I did not. I truly, by the end of it, I just felt kind of gross. I felt like I was cut. I wasn't able to eat even like vegetables that I love, because they would add in even just a couple extra carbs here and there. I couldn't have hardly any fruit at all, and that made me sad as well. I was having to actually add extra butter and fat and stuff into my foods in order to get my fat percentage higher. And I wasn't able, you can't go whole hog on protein. So I wasn't able to get in the amount of protein that I typically like to take in. So there was a lot of things. But anyway, it just helped me to remember that when you dive into these kind of diets and you change everything all at once, it's challenging. I think we typically go through a honeymoon phase, right? When you first start doing it, you're like, oh, this is great. I feel amazing. And oh my gosh, my energy is great. And it really seems kind of easy. And I'm eating perfectly and I'm following every rule. And I'm, you're preparing your meals, spending a lot of times preparing each and every meal. So it's just perfect. And you think, oh yeah, I can do this. I can see why people might like this. And that honeymoon phase is powerful. Your motivation's high. You feel proud of yourself. And this is where a lot of those January programs hook you. Is you get sucked in, you're feeling amazing, and it sounds great. I'm going to change everything, and it's going to be totally different than anything else I've ever done, right? And then real life shows up, and you realize that you don't want to spend hours in the grocery store every week reading every single label to determine whether you can consume it or not. You realize you don't want to avoid foods that you genuinely enjoy. And for me, and the keto diet, as a dietitian, I'm just wait a minute, I need my fruits and veggies, right? And, not to mention eating out or going to social events can be stressful, because you feel like, you have to ask all these questions about how things were made. And if you go to somebody else's house, you have to go, oh, you know what, I probably better bring my own food, because I don't know what they're going to have there, or if I'm going to be able to have it. And all of these things just make it more challenging. And slowly, very slowly, those perfect habits, they start to crack. So for me with the keto, I remember after 4 weeks, I was just nope, can't do this. And what was really disturbing for me on that, and I was able to, talk to my clients about this, is when you get off keto, if you've ever done it before, you will rebound any weight you've lost and plus some. Some people just lose it hand over fist, and I think they love it because it's just oh, I can have as much fat as I want, right? But yeah, there's definitely a rebound at the end of it. And you will see weight regain, if not more. So that was a little bit of a slap in the face too. Um, and this isn't because, you're like, oh, I quit because I lack discipline or I lack willpower. It's because you're changing way too many things all at once. And this is what, most January diets and cleanses and detoxes are all built on. They're asking you to change, how you eat or how you move and cut out entire food groups and follow these rigid rules and rely totally on your willpower and your motivation all at the same time. And we already know how this ends because, it's not because we fail, it's because this approach is not built for real life. So what actually works is not doing more, it's actually doing less consistently. Small changes, repeatable habits, and systems that actually fit into your daily life and your routine. The keto thing, I realize I don't need more rules. I like the systems. I like things that work with my life rather than against it. And that's exactly kind of the ideas I created around the Strong in 21 program. Because I wanted women to understand what it felt like to be successful, to actually do something and go, I can do this. This is sustainable. I can do this for the long term because it is not killing me. It is not changing everything in my world. It's not a short-term diet or detox, and it's definitely not about, overhauling your entire life in the very first month of the year. So in Strong in 21, like some of the things that we do work on is we focus on really simple nutrition pieces, like prioritizing protein in your meals. And they kind of feed into larger overall ideas when it comes to women and hormone support and just how we feel, like blood sugar control. But we simplify it. It's just let's start with the protein piece of that. Let's add in the fiber piece of that. When it comes to energy, let's do something simple that can really frequently be a problem for women as far as their energy levels, and that's hydration. And then, of course, there is the piece that you've heard me talk about all the time is it for women in midlife, and that's we need to be doing strength training. We know that this is a must when it comes to our metabolism, our muscle, our bone health. And so these are kind of the ideals I base, like the Strong in 21 program, because, and it's not about perfection. It's just about consistency. It's just about repetition, because that's where the change actually happens, especially, for women after 40. I know it's a whole different world when we're in our 20s, right? We can make one little change and, all of a sudden we, drop 10 pounds or, we see muscles in our legs or arms because we worked out once or something like that. It's so different when we're in our 20s, It's not the same when we hit our 40s and 50s, right? Because, the exercise piece is vital. And this is where a lot of women shut down before they even start. Because most women are like, if I'm going to do this right, I need to work out 5 to 7 days a week. And before they even begin, they feel like they're behind, right? So that's precisely why in Strong in 21, I created 3 30-minute strength workouts per week, requiring basic equipment. These aren't some crazy difficult exercises because you know what? You need to learn the basic movements before you're jumping into the more advanced ones, right? Because then you accomplish that. You're successful in I can do this. I know how to deadlift now, right? Because, it gives you that win. And that is what helps to propel us forward. Because if we're trying to build consistency, doing more usually doesn't help. It just increases the chance of quitting. But if we can take that step back and just be consistent and do, the same thing and just get good at it, it's amazing what that will do for our confidence. I use a framework in Strong in 21 called my Strong Framework, STRONG, right? And it just has to do with the things that are important when it comes to progressive overload. And if you've heard me talk about that before, it is kind of basically the idea that doing random workouts where you're just kind of jumping from one machine, doing, all different types of muscle groups, not really knowing what weight you're using or how many reps you're doing or sets you're doing, those, we're not going to see results from that because they're not using progressive overload. And what that means is just that we are actually doing those same movements. We are getting good at the form, and then we are doing them over and over again, and we are challenging our body and challenging our muscle with repetitions, with the number of sets, with the weight that we're using, doing all these different methods to actually challenge and push those muscles so that they do adapt and they do get stronger at the end of it. And that's just imperative, right? It's just kind of simple structure. And it allows you to progress without burning out. You don't need to jump right into lifting super heavy weights. You need to focus on that form first. And you definitely don't need to be in shape before you start. You just need to show up. You just need to, one foot in front of the other. Because, I know that it's challenging, especially if you haven't been doing it on a regular basis, if it's not something that is already in your routine. So we need to figure out how can we do this and just slowly get in start seeing those wins and feeling that success and that confidence that comes with you saying, I did it, right? And I know that, life doesn't pause so that you can work out, right? And you need to be able to, do your workouts at whatever time that works best for you. You need to be able to do them kind of wherever you are, whether you're, in the little gym at work over your lunch hour, or you're using your, few dumbbells that you have at home, or maybe, you're traveling for work and you're doing it in a little gym in the hotel that you're staying at. You need to be able to take your workouts and the videos that show you how to do them with you wherever you go, right? That's going to make it more likely that you're going to do it. And that's why I use the Trainerize app with all of my clients, and I basically put their workouts in there, and they can see each and every exercise, and they can see a video of each and every exercise, because you know what? You're not going to remember, last week I did the dumbbell deadlift. What the heck was that? What was that movement? And how did I do it? And how did I do it correctly to make sure that I'm not going to hurt my back, or I'm not going to, I'm not going to do it improperly or lift, using the wrong muscle groups or whatever, right? That's important. So taking out the guesswork and the planning and the wondering what the heck you'll do next. It's intentional. The easier it is to start, the more likely you are going to be to keep it going, right? And let me say this out loud. You do not need to be in shape to start a workout plan. That's the whole point. So if 3 workouts a week feels like too much right now, that's okay. If you do 2, that's progress. If one week looks different than another, that's real life. And that's okay, because it's not all or nothing. It's about just keep going. And in the Strong in 21 program, I do have 3 awesome masterclasses I'm super excited about. And it's just about kind of education without overwhelm. So each week on Tuesday evenings, and yes, replays are available because I know that, people have different things going on, and sometimes Tuesdays at 6 is not going to work for everybody. So I do have replays available. But my very first masterclass, I decided to call From Smaller to Stronger, because I want to talk about why the scale stops being helpful for women after 40. Or why, I should say more importantly, why it shouldn't be our only measure of success. And we're going to touch on why strength matters more than ever, and how to shift from trying to get smaller to actually building something stronger. The second masterclass on Tuesday, February 3rd is called Eat More, Crave Less, Get Stronger. And this one connects under eating, cravings, blood sugar regulation, protein, fiber. And then we are going to touch on supplements and even GLP-1s because I wanted to incorporate things in that my clients and women like on social media have asked me about. I want to incorporate those kind of things in because these are things that women are wondering about now. And if you listened to my episode last week, I talked about GLP-1s and kind of the shame and guilt around weight loss and using those medications especially for women because they feel like it's kind of quote unquote cheating. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, it's episode 25. And then the third masterclass that we'll be doing on February 10th is called Consistency Without Burnout. And it's just more of kind of what I've been talking about today because we know that motivation fades and life gets busy and, perfection is exhausting. So how do we keep going? How do we keep moving forward? And, to reach those goals that we want to reach, whether they are just, I want to cut my cholesterol down. I want to, increase my energy. I want to increase my strength. I want to, maybe, you're at risk of osteopenia or osteoporosis. Maybe you want to make your bones stronger. All of those things are going to help to keep pushing us forward and helping you to reach, successfully reach your goal. And in the Strong in 21 program, I didn't want any women to not be able to do it because of price or because of cost. And that's why the program is $21, not just because it lacks value, not because it's just like, it's a program you're not going to think about again, but because I wanted that barrier to entry be low. I don't want the cost to be a reason a woman doesn't try something that could help her rebuild that consistency and that confidence, because it's about momentum. It's not about overwhelm. So, I think about when I, did that keto diet and how frustrating it got. And by the end of it, I just absolutely quit. It wasn't because I wasn't capable and it wasn't because I didn't need more rules. I just needed a system, right? And I mean, this is what I teach to my clients every single day. And I knew that obviously the keto diet wasn't going to be something I was going to be on forever. But it did help me to realize and think a little bit more about, the different diets that we go on and why they work for a short bit and why, why they quit working, why we can't do them for a long time. So, whether you decide to join us in Strong in 21, which starts in just a couple days, or just simply take a few ideas from this episode, I hope it helps you to stop blaming yourself for approaches that were never designed to last for the long term. It wasn't your fault because you don't need another overhaul. You just need something that you can keep doing, something that's you can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, be consistent with. Okay? If you found that, this episode was helpful, I'd love it if you would share it with a friend. And remember, this is about progress over perfection. We're in this for the long haul, and this is your season of strength. Take care and have a great day.